My husband passed away. Everyone at the funeral mourned for him. Yet, I didn't shed a single tear. His mother scolded me, saying, "You heartless person, how can you be so indifferent? You should never have agreed to marry him in the first place." Why do I seem so indifferent? Because I know he isn't really dead. At this moment, he is with his first love at a gynecology appointment. When I arrived at the venue, every seat was already filled. Everyone was dressed in black, showing signs of grief. The central coffin was surrounded by numerous flower wreaths. I never expected that Mr. James would pass away at such a young age. Yes, it's truly a pity. I heard he was in the late stages of cancer, but didn't Master James always have good health? How could he have gotten such a disease? Several people I know greeted me and offered their condolences. It felt like a bolt from the blue. Numbly, I walked forward, and there it was on the black and white photo, James's gentle face, full of affection. It was the very picture I took of him, my favorite one. How could this happen? Just 2 days ago, we were still on the phone discussing our plan to go to Sonia for our 4th anniversary. How could our next meeting turn out to be like this? James's mother collapsed on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. The event lasted for 2 hours. I took James's mother, who had fainted from crying, back to the 2nd floor. "Mom, don't be sad. I'm here with you." Who wouldn't feel sad? My heart feels as if it's being painfully squeezed by a large hand. Suddenly, my phone in my pocket vibrated. A picture had been sent from an unknown number. In the photo, a man and woman were walking closely together, standing intimately in front of the obstetrics and gynecology clinic. In that instant, my blood ran cold. The man in the photo is actually my husband, who died an hour ago. Standing next to him is my sister, Emily. I quietly left the room, my fingers trembling as I dialed that strange number. The call connected quickly. A deep voice came through, "Mrs. James." I struggled to conceal my anger and asked, "Where did that photo come from?" "It was taken today," he replied. "How did I disturb you and make you sad?" A man's teasing voice came through. He was right, I was engulfed in sorrow. Yet this photograph turned all my emotions into a joke. He was already dead, so where did this photo come from? The man scoffed. "Dead? Mrs. James, do you believe that if you open the coffin now, it would be empty? He deceived you. If you don't believe me, meet me tomorrow at 3 o'clock in the afternoon at the city center office building. You'll see the person you've been missing." I hung up the phone and only then realized I was drenched in cold sweat. I stared at the photo on my phone, clenching my teeth tightly. The next afternoon, I drove to the office building downtown. In the cafe, I spotted a familiar figure with crossed legs. As I walked in, the man stood up. "Mrs. James," he said. I was all too familiar with the person before me, Michael, James's archrival. I avoided his outstretched hand and got straight to the point. "Where is he?" The feud between Michael and James dates back to their ancestors. Before the James family moved to Haicheng, the Michael family had long been the local power in the city, dominating the business chain for decades. However, after the James family settled in Haicheng, they managed to take over half of Michael's clients in just 2 days. As the young heirs of their respective families, the two have always been at odds with each other. Michael smiled and pointed outside the glass window. "Isn't that them?" I followed his gaze and saw a tall man guiding a petite woman out of the hotel through a small alley. That figure, I would recognize it even if it turned to ash. It was indeed James. My hand holding the coffee began to tremble, and my fingertips turned pale. Before coming, I had wondered if one of James's enemies might seize the opportunity while he was away and come to cause me trouble. I had made all the preparations, but I never expected the photos to be real. Looking at the intimate couple in front of me, I widened my eyes in disbelief. How could this be happening? James isn't dead. He's alive and well, and he's having an affair. Why? We've been married for 4 years. He loves me with all his heart. Yet now, everything in front of me feels like a brutal slap in the face, leaving me in indescribable pain. I can't help but start to doubt, is he really James? It can't be. It can't possibly be him. James loves me so much. How could it be him? This must be Michael's scheme. He deliberately sent me the photos and intentionally asked me to come out and see everything. It must be to sow discord between me and James's family. I looked at him angrily and asked, "Why do you have to find a fake to fool me? What do you really want?" Michael seemed to have anticipated my reaction and was not angry at all. Instead, he casually explained, "I knew you wouldn't believe me. If James is fake, then what about Emily by his side? Could she also be a fake?" "Mrs. James, don't deceive yourself," he added. Every word he said felt like a slap in my face. I am being forced to acknowledge the truth before me. Yes, I have only been deceiving myself. How can there be two people in this world who are so alike? I just cannot accept the fact that I have been deceived by James. I clenched my fists and abruptly stood up, wanting to confront him and ask why he did this. But Michael grabbed my wrist. "If you go there now, you'll only alert them. Just go back and take a good rest." In that moment, I helplessly crouched down. Tears slipped down from the corners of my eyes, drop by drop. Why? Why did it end up like this? I returned home feeling lost and dazed. As soon as I walked in, I was greeted by the wedding photo of James and me. I ran my fingers over the picture, and the scene from the afternoon flashed through my mind. In an instant, my brain felt like it short-circuited, and I raised my hand, swinging my bag hard to smash the photo into pieces. A piece of glass shattered at my feet. I fell into a memory. I met James in the most difficult year of my life. I was the only daughter of the Smith family. My parents had a business marriage, but they were very affectionate towards each other. I was very happy, until my mother discovered my father's affair. Our once happy family fell apart. Unable to bear the betrayal, my mother committed suicide by cutting her wrists right in front of me. That was also the hardest year of my life. My father came to visit with his mistress and her child. The girl in the pink princess dress is only a year younger than me. She was cradled in my father's arms, smiling proudly. I don't understand why my once gentle and kind father has changed so suddenly. He claimed he never loved my mother and never loved me. I went crazy, wanting to drive Emily away, but he pushed me back fiercely. "If you keep this up, get out of my house." That day, I ran out of the house into the pouring rain. I walked on the bridge, drenched. It was James who saved me. He took me back home, claiming he wanted to seek justice for me. He was 18 years old that year. He made my father kneel and apologize to me. In front of everyone in Haicheng, he declared that anyone who bullied Olivia would be going against the James family. I fell deeply in love with him. We dated and eventually got married. I thought we would be happy together forever, until recently when he suddenly started acting differently. He was listless and kept jokingly asking me what I would do if he died. I was terrified and quickly suggested taking him to the hospital for a checkup. But he just laughed and pulled me into his arms, affectionately saying, "I'm just joking. How could I bear to die with you around?" Yet, less than 2 days later, I received the news of his death. I hadn't even had the time to grieve. I discovered again that he had cheated, and the person he cheated with was none other than my lifelong rival. My thoughts settled down. My phone chimed with numerous messages, all from Michael. There were dozens of photos, taken from different angles, showcasing James at various times. After being together for 4 years, my memories of him are almost etched in my bones. Among them, there are even photos from our 3rd anniversary when they met. I can't believe they had already been together at that time. He clearly said he was going on a business trip for a meeting that day. I never expected that they had secretly been in contact for over a year, or even longer, right under my nose. At this moment, my anger has reached its peak. I questioned Michael about what exactly he wanted to do. "Calm down, I just want you to see his true colors," he said. Is that so? On one hand, I have never had any interaction with him. Moreover, I had heard from James before that Michael is cunning and treacherous. I didn't believe him. "You simply want to use this to threaten me. Just tell me what you want. Even though James has treated me this way, his family has been my lifesaver. I can't just dismiss them completely. If anything were to happen to James, it would spell disaster for his family. I don't want to see that kind of scene." Michael sighed. "Do you really see me that way?" I didn't respond, so he continued, "All right, there is indeed something. At tomorrow's auction, I hope you can come out with me." I was just about to refuse when Michael continued, saying that James would also be coming. I felt a bit puzzled. Since he is supposedly dead, how could he appear in public? After all, the entire city is aware that James is already dead. To take a photograph of the ocean star for Emily. The ocean star is a keepsake left by her mother. After her mother passed away, her father took it away. She never expected it to reappear now. James had seen this necklace before. He once said that he would definitely find it for me. Now I have to take a picture for my enemy. I accepted Michael's invitation, and the reason is simple: I want to see what James is up to. As the auction approaches, Michael sends someone to pick me up well in advance. When I got out of the car, I saw James from a distance, dressed in a suit and wearing a mask. He held Emily's hand as if he were leading her into a treasure-filled hall. Although I had seen such scenes before, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness in my heart. He is my husband, the man I have loved for 4 years. Now he is by the side of another woman, one that I hate the most in this life. I force myself to stay calm as I follow Michael into the venue. Our seats are directly above James, allowing me to see his every move clearly. Watching him tightly holding Emily's hand, their fingers interlocked, and gently draping a shawl over her, they looked just like a loving couple. My breath quickened, and my chest heaved with agitation. I couldn't help but wish I could rush over and give each of them a good slap right now. Before coming here, I had already given myself some mental preparation. I had to stay calm. In front of so many people, I wasn't just exposing James's true identity, I was also slapping his family's face. However, when I actually witnessed this scene, I almost lost control. Fortunately, Michael was beside me to stop me. The Ocean Star made its grand appearance at the auction. As soon as it appeared, countless people began to drive up the price. This was the dowry when my mother got married, and it was stolen by someone with ill intentions after she committed suicide. I was too young at that time and lacked the ability to do anything. Now, I raised my sign without hesitation. Shortly after, James, who was sitting below, also increased his bid. By the time the bid reached 40 million, he showed no signs of stopping, spending a fortune for a smile from a beautiful woman. Many people had already turned to look at them. Who is that? Not even a blink from those 40 million eyes. The young lady sitting next to him must be from the Smith family. It's like throwing money around just to win a smile from a beautiful woman. I'm really envious. Could he be her boyfriend? As I listened to the discussions around me, my grip on the hem of my clothes tightened, turning my hand slightly pale. 40 million is a lot, even though the James family is wealthy. They have always been low-key. When we got married, we only spent 10 million. Now, he is only buying a necklace for Emily. I feel like a deflated balloon, my hand hanging down helplessly. I didn't expect it to escalate to this price when I came here. I've reached my limit. In the end, the necklace was acquired by Emily for 40 million. The auction has concluded, and everyone is leaving. Emily, walking ahead, turned her head and immediately locked eyes with me. Then, feigning shock, she covered her mouth and said, "Sister, what are you doing here? Could it be that you came for this necklace too?" She proudly showcased the Ocean Star necklace she had just won, which was hanging from her neck. "It's a pity." I told him I didn't want it, but my brother insisted on buying it for me. "I'm really sorry, sister, he just loves me too much." Ever since Emily came to the Smith family, I knew she was a talented actress and a skilled manipulator. That's why she always manages to get everyone on her side, while I am forever left feeling abandoned. I thought James was different. He was there for me during my toughest times, loving me and being my support. But now, the love he once gave me, he also gives to Emily. And even more, with greater intensity. Emily's words are nothing but sharp thorns piercing my heart. I couldn't hold back any longer and brought my hand down hard on her smug face. The slap was incredibly forceful, fueled by the anger of being deceived and humiliated. "Ah!" Emily screamed as she covered her face, tears instantly welling up in her eyes. "Sister, why did you hit me?" Not far away, James heard the commotion and immediately squeezed through the crowd to come over. He pushed me aside and gently cupped Emily's face in his hands, examining her closely as if he were afraid she might be hurt. Then, he looked at me with anger and said, "Have you gone mad? Why did you hit her?" Perhaps he was too furious. The movement caused his mask to slip off accidentally. His face was exposed in front of everyone. Oh my God, isn't that the young master from the James family? How did he end up here? Wasn't he supposed to be dead? This is so crazy. Could it be that he didn't die after all, and he's here with Miss Smith, only to be caught by Mrs. James? Wasn't Mr. James always so nice to her? How did it come to this? The chatter grew louder, making me reminisce about our past relationship. Because he loved me, on rainy days, James couldn't bear to let my shoes get wet and carried me for more than 10 kilometers. Because he loved me, he studied alongside the chef for a year just to cook the dishes I liked. Everyone in Haicheng knows that the young master from the James family is infatuated with me, willing to go so far as to pluck the stars from the sky as a marriage gift. And now, it has been many days since we last met. My deceased husband has taken my mother's belongings for another woman and publicly scolded me for her. James clearly did not expect the mask to suddenly fall away. His expression froze for a moment, and he sheepishly covered his face with his hands. I let out a cold laugh and said, "It's been a long time, my husband. Aren't you going to explain yourself?" Before James could say anything, Emily stepped forward and positioned herself protectively behind him, wearing an expression of self-sacrifice. "Sister, please don't be angry. It's my fault, so don't blame Brother James." Seeing her face reignited the anger that had just cooled down. I raised my hand and slapped her face again. Emily lost her balance and was instantly knocked to the ground by me. James was furious and shouted at me, "What are you doing? Emily is innocent. Why did you hit her?" I found it amusing. Innocent? Isn't it true that Emily just can't stand to see me happy and wants to take everything I cherish away from me? Doesn't he understand this? Moreover, he didn't even bother to ask for an explanation. He just jumped to conclusions and condemned me. For years of our relationship became a joke in that moment. Did I really need a reason to hit her? Have you forgotten what you once said? Every time you saw her, you were going to teach her a lesson for me. How is it that, in the midst of all that, we ended up on the bed? You even pretended to be dead to deceive me. James, is this how you love me? Others don't know, but he, James, has seen it all. He witnessed Emily pulling my hair and making me eat with the dog. He saw how I was bullied at the Smith's house. Now he claims that Emily is innocent? That's simply a huge joke. How dare he? At the beginning, when I was scared that he would follow the same path as his father, he vowed countless times with his life. Was all of that just a lie? Anyone can accept it. But why? Why is it specifically Emily? Olivia, can you please calm down? It was her mother who was the mistress, not her. Besides, she just wanted to improve her relationship with you. She's explained all this to me. It was a misunderstanding. Can you please not make a mountain out of a molehill? Improving a relationship almost killed me, you know? I stared intently at James, trying to find a trace of the love we once had in his eyes. However, it was clear that he was disappointed. He watched me warily like an eagle, afraid that I might hurt Emily again in the next moment. The way he used to look at me with tenderness had transformed, and now he regarded me as an enemy. Brother James, please don't speak to my sister like that. It's understandable that she hates me. It's my fault that she has become this way. There's nothing between me and Brother James, so please don't let this cause any rift between you because of me. Emily, James, Emily. Screams filled the air. James trembled as he picked her up. It hurts so much, James, don't fight with my sister. Blood flowed continuously from beneath her. Emily cried, her face streaming with tears. My child, Emily is pregnant. I stood there in shock, forgetting what I was supposed to do. I could only watch as James broke down, shouting for an ambulance, his eyes filled with resentment as he looked at me. If anything were to happen to Emily, I wouldn't forgive you. The sighs of those around me reached my ears, mixed with laughter and sympathy. This was nothing less than James slapping me hard in front of everyone. He cared more about Emily than about me. To him, I was like an enemy, his wife. James's misses it left me speechless. I arrived at the hospital a little later. The lights in the operating room were still on. James contacted all the leading doctors, determined to save the baby in Emily's womb. As I watched him moving about in a hurry, there was a moment when I felt as if I were seeing myself during my own illness a long time ago. It was just a minor cold. James was terrified. He drove me for dozens of kilometers to the hospital in the city center and stayed with me all night without closing his eyes. Only when my fever broke did he finally hug me and cry, saying, "You scared me to death. What would I have done if something had happened to you?" Now, the situation has repeated itself. The one who is causing him so much worry is now Emily. The lights in the operating room have gone out. The doctor has come out. Who is the family member? James hurriedly stepped forward, looking as frantic as an ant on a hot pan. He anxiously asked, "Doctor, how is she?" "You are her," he answered without hesitation. "Husband." I forced a smile, struggling to control my emotions. The child couldn't be saved, the adult needed to rest well. Those words hit James like a thunderbolt, and he staggered back a couple of steps. Then he stood up and abruptly walked towards me, raising his hand and striking me hard across the face. The sound echoed through the hospital corridor. When I finally came to my senses, my face felt a sudden, sharp pain. James glared at me, gritting his teeth. "Are you satisfied now? How could you be so cruel? She is innocent. Why can't you just let her go?" A hint of confusion washed over me. It took me a while to realize that he had actually hit me. For Emily, he was willing to resort to violence against me. Not to mention, Emily's car accident had nothing to do with me. Furthermore, her life or death was none of my concern, nor was it about their child. From beginning to end, he had never offered any explanation. Why is it my fault? After all these years, the moments we shared in love have now been completely forgotten by him. The vows he once made to protect me for a lifetime have become chains. Has he forgotten that I am his legally recognized wife, while Emily is merely an outsider who has disrupted our family? I looked at him, my voice trembling. "You hit me." James never expected that he would actually strike me. But he was just too angry. Anger had consumed me to the point where I could no longer control my actions. "Don't you owe me an explanation, Emily? Whose child is in your womb?" I clearly already knew the answer, yet I still held on to a glimmer of hope. What if I was overthinking it? What if the child inside her wasn't his? But my hopes were in vain. James's expression was as unpleasant as if he had swallowed a fly. After a long silence, he muttered, "This is my fault. I should have exercised better self-control. It has nothing to do with Emily, and you shouldn't blame her." I was so angry that I couldn't help but laugh. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. "James, why did you suddenly change your mind? Why are you treating me like this? Emily is innocent, am I not innocent too?" To my surprise, James didn't take it seriously at all. He sneered and said, "Stop pretending. You were with me only for the James family's wealth. My fake death allows you to achieve what you wanted, doesn't it?" I looked at him in disbelief. The questioning words stuck in my throat. How could he think this way? All these years, I had been by his side, working hard and dedicated, just to help the James family thrive. Yet, he actually thought I was only after their fortune. How did I guess your thoughts? Emily was right, you really are a woman with deep motives. If she hadn't told me, I probably would have remained oblivious for a long time. So that's how it is. No wonder Emily was able to get close to him, it's because he believed Emily's nonsense. It's truly ironic. After all these years, everything I've done has turned out to be a joke. I smiled bitterly at myself. For the sake of the James family fortune, I never had such thoughts. Did you forget that all the money I have is what you insisted on giving me? And now you're doubting me based on a few words from Emily. At this point, I paused. I used nearly all my strength to utter these words. If you trust her so much, then let's just get a divorce. James, it's as if all the love I've given over the years has gone to waste. Everyone in the entire coastal city already knows that I am the one who was abandoned. Besides, my beloved James is already gone. There's no point in holding on any longer. I suddenly feel tired of it all. Tired of questioning and suspicion. All I want to do now is escape. I thought that saying this would make James happy. After all, my current approach would undoubtedly bring him much more relief than the incessant clinginess. However, he only gave a cold laugh and said, "Olivia, you don't need to say such things to try to keep me. You love me so much, yet you're willing to let me go." Yes, he knows it himself. I love him deeply, because he is my only one. But the one I love is the James who looks at me with all his heart. The James who treasures me like a precious gem. Instead of the James in front of me who hits me, hates me, and has turned his back on me. What has he done with my love? Has he really changed his heart, and do I still have to keep waiting for him? It's too nauseating. Just thinking about all those countless days and nights when I missed him while he was entangled with Emily makes me want to vomit. It makes me feel sick all over. How can he say such things so nonchalantly? Doesn't his heart hurt at all? No wonder, he knows I love him, which is why he is so blatant in being good to Emily. In his eyes, he might think that even if I find out, I would still forgive him, but he should understand me better than anyone else. Throughout my life, the thing I despise the most is infidelity. First my father, and then him. I'm serious, James. I'm going to divorce you. The agreement will be drafted tomorrow. That's it, I'm just too exhausted. At this moment, I felt completely disappointed in him and didn't want to say another word. I turned to leave. It was then that James realized I seemed to be serious. Suddenly, he panicked and said, "Divorcing me? Do you really think anyone else would want you?" His words were hurtful. Those who truly understand you know where your wounds are. So he precisely rubbed salt into them. Indeed, no one wants me, my mother abandoned me, and my father left me. Now he has betrayed me as well. James, I have to say, you are truly ruthless. Just as I was feeling embarrassed, a shadow suddenly covered my head. I gasped. Michael stood behind me and pulled me into his arms. With a light laugh, I said, "It's better to leave early. I'm waiting to start my shift." Michael looked at Olivia and asked, "Why is he here?" James widened his eyes, shifting his gaze between me and Michael. Suddenly, a sense of retaliation struck me. If he could protect Emily, then why couldn't I be with Michael? After all, he was about to be my boyfriend. I cooperatively wrapped my arm around Michael's. "Young Master James, I'm leaving now. Please make sure to sign the agreement on time. Don't ruin my good fortune." James retorted, "Olivia, even if you're jealous, you should know your limits. Bringing Michael here to provoke me, you clearly know how much I dislike him. He doesn't believe I've changed my mind, just as I don't believe he's fallen for Emily." Does James love me? That is an undeniable fact. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been with me when I was despised by others. But this love is fickle. It shifted from me to Emily in an instant. I felt unwilling to accept it. I couldn't bear to think that all my feelings over the years had been wasted. James's speculation is understandable. Seeing me silent, he suddenly went into a frenzy. "Are you really so shameless? You want to make things difficult for Olivia. You're just so cheap." His words crushed all my thoughts. I let out a soft laugh. "You're right, I am cheap. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let you control me for these 4 years. But don't worry, I won't cling to you anymore." With that, I grabbed Michael's hand and turned to leave without hesitation. I don't know if it's just my illusion, but it seems like I heard James behind me in a furious rage, smashing things. However, I probably misheard. I won't dwell on it. He should be happy, after all. Since I've chosen to take a step back, he can now be open about his relationship with Emily. It wasn't until I left the hospital that I realized I was still holding Michael's hand. Quickly let go. "Thank you. If it weren't for him, I might still be in the dark." Michael chuckled lightly, saying, "It's nothing, I'm just happy to help." Happy to help? How could I not remember this side of him, the demon king of Haicheng? However, I no longer want to think about it. The things that have happened these days are enough to give me a splitting headache. Michael casually asked while driving, "So, are you really planning on getting a divorce?" I looked out the window at the reflection, and memories of my experiences with James flashed in my mind, finally ending with the image of him slapping me. After a long pause, I replied quietly, "Yes. You are quite generous. I thought you would forgive him, but it seems I overestimated his position in your heart." Did I really overestimate it? My feelings for James can no longer be described with those 2 words. Ever since my mother left, he has been standing before me, and he has filled my heart completely. It's just that no amount of love can compare to the moment I witnessed his infidelity. It shattered into nothingness. Suddenly, everything came to a halt. Michael said casually, "Since you've chosen to divorce, have you considered me?" I looked at him in disbelief. "Are you crazy?" "Maybe a little," he replied. "How could it not be that I've had a crush on you all along? Otherwise, why would I help you? Just for that little bit of James's family wealth?" I had never really thought about why Michael would help me, even if it was just to sow discord between me and the James family. There wasn't really any substantial gain. After all, I was just Mrs. James, with no money to my name. I only had the property that was divided after the divorce. Seeing me deep in thought, Michael chuckled and said, "All right, don't overthink it. How about I bring you to work at our company? I remember you were in data management at James's company. I can offer you double the salary." That sounds good. Perhaps, in comparison to emotional ties, an exchange of benefits is what I can accept. Moreover, after leaving James's house, I truly had nowhere else to go. The news of James's death and resurrection quickly became known to everyone. When I returned to the villa, James's mother was already standing at the door. As soon as she saw me get out of the car, she rushed a few steps forward and grabbed my collar tightly, raising her hand as if to hit me. I immediately grabbed her wrist and forcefully shook her off. "You didn't expect me to resist you, did you?" James's mother exclaimed angrily, her neck stiff with indignation. "Are you out of your mind? In front of so many people, how can you let the James family's reputation be tarnished?" The incident at the auction has spread throughout the prestigious circles of Haicheng. Many people called her, mocking her and making her lose face. She was scolding me for my confrontation with Emily, insisting I should be more magnanimous and tolerant. "Madam, James and I are planning to get a divorce." Divorce. A look of astonishment flashed across James's mother's eyes. "Just because of such a trivial matter, you want a divorce? It's wrong for James to lie to you, but wasn't he just trying to avoid making you upset? If he hadn't done that, there wouldn't have been this whole act. Besides, even if he has found Emily, isn't the position of Mrs. James still yours? What are you not content with?" From the time James and I were dating, his mother never really liked me. After all, in prestigious families, social standing is important, and I was no longer the heiress of the Smith family. There was no benefit to her son by being with me. But all that didn't matter because James liked me. So even if she didn't like me, I could only nod and accept it. Later, when we got married, I tried my best to please her. I almost humiliated myself, working hard for her. But now I realize that all my efforts were in vain. Deep down, she never truly accepted me. Even though I witnessed James being unfaithful with my own eyes, I still chose to stand by his side, putting up with it and bowing my head. I sighed, feeling completely exhausted. "I can no longer be Mrs. James. You can find whoever you want, Emily or anyone else. It doesn't matter to me anymore. I just want to set myself free." "You're serious, Olivia?" "Let me tell you, everyone is competing to take the position of Mrs. James, so you might as well give it to someone else." Before she could finish speaking, I interrupted her directly. "If others want to take their turn, then let them. I'll step back." After saying that, I went straight upstairs and started packing my things. 4 years. In fact, I don't have much of my own, most of it was bought by James. Clothes, shoes, bags. Each item carries its own unique memories. I took a moment to look at them one by one before placing them back in their original spots. In the end, I was surprised to find that everything fit into a small suitcase. I walked out of the villa. The heavy stone in my heart finally fell. It's finally coming to an end. James didn't believe that I was truly going to divorce him. He thought I was just angry at the moment. It wasn't until he received the divorce agreement that he realized I wasn't joking. When the phone rang, I had just finished renting my apartment. It wasn't big, and compared to James's villa, it felt like a fantasy. But I was very content. At least I could feel safe here. "Olivia, what do you mean?" I could sense his underlying anger even through the phone. "Never mind, once we sign the papers, let's completely sever ties. As for the assets, since you cheated after our marriage, you can leave with nothing." Surely, Master James wouldn't stoop so low as to quibble over this amount of money with me. "You know that's not what I meant. Are you really going to divorce me? I know I was wrong about Emily, and I apologize for that. I promise it won't happen again. Can we just move forward and be okay? I was wrong, and I'm sorry. Please don't joke about this sort of thing." James suddenly changed his tone, his voice becoming humble. It was reminiscent of how he used to comfort me during our countless arguments in the past. I found myself momentarily lost in thought, but it was only for a second. In that moment, "No, you should reassure Emily instead. I wish you both happiness." I don't agree to the divorce, Olivia. I know I've made mistakes. Please don't do this." My tone turned cold, carrying a hint of warning. "It's the end now. Can you not make this so embarrassing? Please save yourself some dignity." James fell silent. After a long pause, he asked, "Is it because of Michael? Are you really with him, Olivia? What does that make of our relationship? What do the 4 years we spent together mean? How could you fall in love with someone else? What a double standard this is. He cheated on me and now he's turning the tables, blaming everything on me. I was so infuriated that I almost laughed. What a joke. Then I quickly hung up the phone. Why did James come looking for me? Firstly, it's because he couldn't bear to part with me, his wife of 4 years, and the bond we shared. Moreover, the outside world has become incredibly noisy, and the pressure from public opinion has forced him to take action. Otherwise, the James family would become the laughingstock of the entire city. But what does that have to do with me? Even if he refuses to sign now, I have already gathered all the evidence of his infidelity. When it comes to the divorce proceedings, he will have no choice but to sign. As expected, the divorce agreement arrived just a couple of days later, along with a note saying not to regret it. I didn't pay much attention to it. After joining Michael's company, I found myself incredibly busy, hardly having a moment's rest. It seemed that Michael had his own ulterior motives, intentionally wanting to cultivate my skills. There wasn't much else. So, Master James is getting remarried, huh? I heard not long ago that he was cheating, and now the mistress has taken the place of the wife. It must be tough for Mrs. James. Indeed, I heard that she beat the mistress so badly that she ended up having a miscarriage. As I passed by the break room, I vaguely heard voices inside. It was only when I checked my phone that I realized. The news of James's remarriage has quickly risen to the trending topics. In the photo, Emily is sweetly nestled in his arms, showing no signs of the sorrow from her recent miscarriage. I manually gave it a thumbs up and left a comment, "Congratulations." Then I let out a mocking laugh. It's truly unfortunate to be born as her child. On the day of James and Emily's wedding, it was very low-key. I've heard that James didn't want to hold a wedding ceremony because he was afraid of embarrassment. Emily, however, wasn't pleased. After all, she was still a young lady from the Smith family. How could a woman like her, who strives desperately to break into the upper echelons, miss out on such a famous opportunity? This once-in-a-lifetime wedding was her chance to shine. So, she bought flowers and stood under the building of James's company, loudly insisting that James organize her wedding. She wouldn't leave until he agreed, completely oblivious to the awkward look on James's face, as if he had swallowed a fly. The mistress wants to take the main stage and even hold a wedding. Let's not mention that James's family can't afford to lose face. A person like James, who has held a high position for a long time, wouldn't indulge her antics. But Emily seems to be clueless. Does she really think that James loves her deeply? This farce lasted for 3 days. James finally couldn't resist and agreed to hold a wedding for her. When I got home, I was just about to take a break when I heard the doorbell ring. I thought it was Michael. After all, he comes over every day to mooch some food and drinks and to make his presence felt. To my surprise, when I opened the door, it was James standing there. He reeked of alcohol and had a dazed expression in his eyes. I hurried to close the door, but unfortunately, the difference in strength between men and women was too great. James firmly pushed against the door and said, "Can we talk this over? There's nothing to discuss. If you don't leave, I'll call the police," I replied. God knows how he managed to find me here. Just thinking about it sent a chill down my spine. James listened to me, looking as deflated as a punctured balloon. His eyes were red as he looked at me, and he said, "Do you really not want to see me? I really miss you, Olivia. I know I've made mistakes. Can we get back together? I've cut all ties with her, and I promise I won't mess up again. I truly realize my mistakes." As he spoke, he actually knelt down in front of me. I was startled and quickly stepped back. "What are you doing? I'm only asking for your forgiveness. I love you. Stop with the nonsense. How could someone who loves me possibly cheat on me with the person I hate the most?" His regret now is simply because he realized that Emily is nowhere near as valuable to him as I am. It's truly disgusting. A wave of nausea washed over me, and I almost ended up throwing up. When he saw that I didn't respond, James thought I was wavering and took a few steps closer to start playing the victim again. James heard a sharp voice behind him. Emily angrily walked toward him. "You said you were going out for a social event, but you came to see this woman. Why did you lie to me?" James's expression immediately turned cold. "What are you doing here? What am I doing here? If I hadn't followed you, I wouldn't have known this side of you. So, are you regretting being with me now? Let me tell you, it doesn't matter if you regret it or not. Do you really think she will still love you? You and I are cut from the same cloth. How can someone like you be worthy? Every word Emily said hit James's sensitive spots, pushing him closer to the edge of an explosion. With his face flushed, James stood up and slapped Emily hard across the face. You hit me. Emily stared at him in disbelief. Enough of this embarrassing scene. Who's really being humiliated here? You're the one who got me pregnant, and now you're pretending to be all lovey-dovey. How disgusting can you be, you bastard? With tears of anger in her eyes, Emily lunged at him. They began to wrestle with each other, and I, frightened, quickly retreated into the room to call the police. In the police station, Michael hurriedly rushed in. He looked me over from head to toe and asked with worry, "Are you okay? Did you get hurt?" I shook my head. My gaze fell on James, who was not far away, his face covered in blood. Emily's nails must have really left their mark on him. Before long, James's mother arrived as well. "It's you who did it. How could you hit my son?" As soon as she approached, she shouted at me. Michael immediately pulled me behind him and frowned, saying, "Ma'am, you're mistaken. It was your new daughter-in-law who hit your son. My girlfriend had nothing to do with it. Also, please keep an eye on your son and stop bothering Olivia. Otherwise, I wouldn't mind exposing what happened tonight and making your James family known." James' mother was so angry that she couldn't find her words for a long time. Of course, she was aware of Michael's methods. If the matter were to spread, it would result in more harm than good. She turned around and headed towards Emily again. A barrage of insults really showed me another side of the affluent lady. For a moment, I actually felt sympathy for Emily. However, it was her own doing. Just as Michael and I were about to leave the police station, James came out as well. He didn't dare look at me, just kept his head down, probably because the alcohol had worn off. "Thank you." It took me a while to realize he was grateful that I called the police. I waved my hand, not wanting to talk to him. "Olivia, are you with Michael?" If it were before, I definitely would have said no. But now I realize that my denial only gives him false hope, making him think there's still a chance for us. So this time, I nodded. "Yes, we are together." James slightly parted his lips, as if he wanted to say something else. Seeing this, Michael immediately stepped forward and took my hand, saying, "James, if you don't go to the hospital soon, you might end up disfigured. Do you need me to call a cab for you?" James's clenched fist finally relaxed a bit, and he forced out a smile that looked more painful than crying. "No need," he said. "I wish you both happiness." It is unclear who exposed the situation, but the story of Emily and James somehow made its way onto the internet. The couple's wedding was called off, and Mr. Smith confronted James with Emily by his side, insisting that James must take responsibility for Emily's miscarriage. Moreover, James's mother is a tough character, and the conflict between the two families escalated, resulting in a very ugly confrontation that even turned into physical fighting. In the end, both sides suffered considerably. At that moment, the Smith family was suddenly investigated for a fraudulent project, which just happened to be the same project that the James family was involved in as well. It was then that James's mother realized that James had secretly helped the Smith family. She was on the verge of exploding with anger, exclaiming, "Have you lost your mind? How could you make such a careless mistake? Don't you realize that you have ruined the entire James family?" In just one night, the Smith family went bankrupt, and the whole family was taken to the police station. Meanwhile, the James family's financial chain was severed. James couldn't bear the pressure and jumped off a building to commit suicide. But he was lucky. He survived but ended up in a vegetative state. When I heard this news, I was busy planning the wedding with Michael. "Yes, we are together now. Do you want to take a look?" I shook my head at the man in the photo, lying on the hospital bed with a pale complexion. "No, I don't think so. I'm not familiar with him."